to the March 9th, 2023 edition of CED Office Hour Live, brought to you by the Community and Economic Development team here at Central State University in the Extension Department, where we talk about all things CED. But before we get into our topic for today, I like to start out with what is community and economic development? Giving you that foundation of where we're coming from in our conversations, right? And community and economic development is this big, diverse spectrum like diversity, right? And when we start off in describing it, it ranges from infrastructure, the development of public spaces, buildings, construction, riverfront developments, bike paths, roadways, walkways, all of these things, all the infrastructure. The other end of the spectrum is the people development. So that's your social service programming, workforce development, personal development, professional development, things that help people move and increase their self sufficiency or empowerment or education in a certain area, right? And then in the middle is the connector. And those are the businesses and organizations that connect both ends of those spectrums. And both ends of the spectrum, the bookends, right? It connects it. And as CED professionals, because in government and academia, we always have acronyms. So CED is Community and Economic Development, right? And what we do is we look at that whole system, right? We're like system engineers. We look at the whole system and see where we can plug and play to make improvements, whether it's a process improvement, a people improvement, or infrastructure improvement. And today, what we're going to be focusing on in that system is looking at social media strategies for your business and stakeholder engagement. So that relationship management, that is critical no matter what industry you're in, no matter even navigating the workplace and navigating unwritten rules and practices, right? So that you can be successful no matter what environment. And with that being said, now I can talk about Naimani all day long. She is awesome. She is the bomb.com boss lady in this space. She's a mover and shaker. She helps businesses, individuals work. She works from behind the scenes, right? She's a connector, a storyteller, but gives you the technical know-how and also the coaching you so that you become self-sufficient. So really she is a CED professional as well. It's just that is her area of expertise. And all of us, we kind of work ourselves out of a job. It's not for us to stay there years and years and years. It's for us to teach, to coach, to guide so that you can accomplish a goal. And then when you determine a new goal or new project, then you call us back in and say, help me with this one too, right? But we kind of work ourselves out of jobs, right? So, with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Naimani and let her tell us about how she even got in this space, her challenges, even just as a business owner, a small business, a women owner, a minority business owner in this tech space, right? And how she has grown, sustained, because she's been doing her thing for the last 25 years. This is She's not a new kid on the block, right? And encourage you to visit her website, danmoney.org, and her social media handles, and we can put that in the chat for you as well, so you just see all the different ways that she engages and keeps um, people coming back, right? And that's one of the things for stakeholder engagement. So without further ado, now, Monty, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much for that warm introduction. Thank you guys for having me and allowing me to be a part of today's conversation. I do want this to be conversational. So I feel that I have just as much to learn from you all. I am going to share some of my best practices in stakeholder and community engagement and ways that we can bridge both the digital and in person worlds. So I am super excited to share a little bit about my story, how I got to where I am, because as you mentioned, it has been a very long journey. I started in the digital space right before the turn of the century. In my first business, I was developing websites and hosting and doing all things digital. I actually went back to school, graduated, and then decided to open up a new company. Well, my 7+ year old startup, nahamani.org. I opened it in 2015. And today we employ 6 individuals plus myself. I have 3 content developers that work alongside of me, 2 website developers. One is local, one is out west. And then I also have a copywriter who helps wordsmith and put all of the pieces together and make sure that everything that we put out on social media, on the web, on blogs, in interviews, all of that is well thought out and well put together. So I don't do this alone. It is definitely more than a one person job. My team and I, we support small business owners. So a lot of our business owners are 1 to 9 employees. Um, we don't focus on a specific industry, so we can help people in various industries really learn how to communicate their value and show up big in these digital spaces. Um, but I'm also very much community oriented. So I am of the mindset that people do business with people, and you have to build relationships with real people. It's great to meet people online and to have those interactions online, but it is our job as leaders to start to bring those relationships offline and into the real world so that we can do some of the meaningful work that is needed in our communities. So I'm very much involved here in the Cincinnati community, been born and raised in Cincinnati. Um, and I serve on a few boards here in Cincinnati. I am a member of the board of directors for Bethany House Services, which is one of the largest family shelters that helps families that are experiencing homelessness. I serve on the business advisory committee for Cincy Co-op. So we are helping to increase worker ownership and give retiring business owners a way to sell their business to their employees and make, market value on their business and keep those employees working. I also work with the Greater Cincinnati Micro Enterprise Initiative. I'm a mindset coach and a facilitator for their entrepreneurial mindset training class. And then I work with the Women's Business Center, and right now I'm co-chairing an event that we're doing called We Empower, which we are calling all of our community members and allies together to do some collective goal setting. And that's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit here today. But being involved in the community and really taking up space as a woman of color is important, and making sure that our voices are in these spaces. It's important for us to be present, but then it's also important for our allies to make sure that there is space for us to advocate for causes that are important to us. So we all have a lot of work to do. So let's get started. So my definition of a stakeholder might be a little bit different than the traditional definition, because I believe that anybody that has a vested interest in the success of an initiative, of a business, of an organization, they are one of your key stakeholders. And when I talk about stakeholder engagement, you're going to have various stakeholders at different levels, and how you engage with them is going to vary depending on where they are in that sphere, and also, how important the message is that you get to them. So some things we can do digitally, which digital is great. It kept us all in business and floating throughout the pandemic. But some things really still require our physical presence and face-to-face conversations. So I definitely want to talk about that. And as we understand how other people get information and how they are persuaded to take action, then that shows us exactly where we need to be. So when I take on a new social media client and I'm onboarding them and finding out, a lot of the times they'll ask me, well, where should I be posting? Where should my social media presence be? And my answer is always the same. It depends. Where are the people the decision makers, where are they spending their online time? And those are the places where you need to have a visible, consistent presence so that when they're making decisions, you come first to mind, whether you're selling a product whether you're selling a service or if you're in the nonprofit arena and you're selling a solution to society's problems. We all need to make sure that we are communicating outwardly and effectively communicating inwardly because we cannot at any point forget our internal stakeholders. So when we think about a business, for me, my internal stakeholders are going to be my staff members. I even consider my customers an internal stakeholder because everything we do is very collaborative. I always tell people I don't take over anybody's social media. I still want my customers to post on their social media. I still want them to feel comfortable going live, but we just provide that consistent presence when they're too busy filling orders and being great and being interviewed on television and doing all the wonderful things they do. We make sure that their social media presence is consistent, and it's really great that we're able to do that and maintain that voice. So for most of my clients, you shouldn't be able to tell if we're posting on their behalf or if they're on there. It should be consistent across the board. So we work really hard to capture their voice, to understand their core values, where they stand on important situations, and make sure that that is communicated both visually and in the words that we use to convey that message. So when we're talking about making change happen, and I love that you guys are operating in various spaces because none of change doesn't happen in a silo. If we're talking about upward mobility, we need to have good infrastructure in order to allow for upward mobility. We need to have legacy businesses. And what I mean by legacy businesses is businesses that outlive their founder, that, their generations from now can pick up and continue to service the clients in the appropriate way at that time. So I actually just got to hear John Moeller, P&G, speak, and they've been around for for a couple hundred years, and what they're doing today is very different than how they had to communicate their value in 1910 or times prior. So they have to continually evolve and grow how they're communicating to people. They're now in global markets, so even how they would communicate to us here in Cincinnati, Ohio, is very different than how they might communicate to someone in Bangladesh or in Europe. So really understanding and putting yourself in the seat of the person that you're trying to communicate to is a critical part. I always try to wear several hats, and one of the most important hats that we as leaders can wear is the hats of our constituents. When I'm working with Bethany House Services and we're trying to come up with programming or raise funds to build a new shelter or, do our annual Christmas drive, I have to always ask myself, at a point when you are experiencing homelessness, which is a very hard point in your life, what are the most important things to you? And what do you need to hear to know that A, you're not alone, B, someone cares, and that your voice and your opinions have value. And a lot of times when people are in that dire situation, they start to lose hope and feel that their opinions no longer have value. And, I have to make sure that as a board member that we're always having those listening ears open. And I find that when you're talking about doing some meaningful change in any community, when I talk about communication, I always want to make sure that I emphasize communication includes both actively listening and how we distribute information. So it's not just me talking at you, but it's also me listening to you and understanding what are your pain points, what keeps you up at night, what drives you to do excellent work, what inspires you to put your best foot forward. And until I truly understand those things about the person I'm serving, then it's really hard for me to be the servant leader that I want to be. So I definitely, and I know that, in organizations as large as a university, there's so many different communication channels. You have information coming from above that you have to disseminate. You have information coming from your student body that you have to communicate to the powers that be. And you're always working as a liaison. And that is the perfect place to be. I am always thankful when I'm invited into rooms like this where we can have these rich conversations, because then that allows me to understand the perspective and understand the place, that the work that we're doing has in the greater community. And I know, Amber, you were telling me earlier that you guys get to go out into the community. You get to, really have roots. And I see Jesse's shirt. I don't know if y'all can see his shirt, but he's rocking the Cincinnati shirt. So I
That's
feel so
right.
right now. Yes, he got the 513 area code.
Yes.
So he's been in Cincinnati for a minute. They're coming out with a new area code in Cincinnati. It's going to be the 283 and the 513. So it's going to be fun um, to see that change and that transition. But I look at it as a positive thing because that means we're growing, we're
Yes.
expanding. More people are coming to Cincinnati and wanting to do business here. They're wanting to have homes here. They're wanting to communicate here. And now we need another area code. So I know when it first dropped, some people were like, what? But I'm actually looking forward to it. But you
Me as
guys
well.
are getting to be in the communities that you serve, and it gives you such a better opportunity to really understand the people that need the support that you're offering. So, the fact that you're supporting the business community, you're also having to advocate with the government community, because, especially when we start talking about things like infrastructure and, making policies that are friendly for business owners like myself to be able to do business in the city of Cincinnati and in the state of Ohio, there is a big role of advocacy that we have to do. Um, and so when you're in those spaces, you guys are using various communication tools. What are some tools that you're using today in 2023 that if I were to ask you that question 4 years ago, were different in your advocacy work?
We use a lot of social media to help get the word out. We still use email, but I would say Microsoft Teams is
Okay, I don't
probably
know
the.
that I can hear you. So let me fix my mic here. You guys hearing me okay?
Yep. Can you all hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Well, that's important.
Can you hear me?
Okay, that should be better.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yes.
So I would say the main thing would be Microsoft Teams and how it continuously evolves. Um, and I would say Zoom.
Oh, yes.
And I would also say, and my team would probably agree, we use a lot of we use Canva a lot.
I do as well. I use Canva every single day. And
Yeah.
it's gotten to the point where I'm using it even in not even in business realms, but in personal things that I'm sharing with my family. Because it just gives you, it's such a powerful tool. So I love
Yes. Yes.
that. Yes, if we want our family all to get together and be at a specific place, I will put together a flyer for the family. Like, I need everybody here. And sometimes I
Yeah.
have to put a little star, like, this is where you park. Um, I don't know if any
Yeah.
of you guys are familiar with parking downtown Cincinnati.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
musical chairs.
Yes, it is.
Where you park
And what
last
was a parking space this week is no longer. You go there, it's chairs and tables. They blocked it off.
right, it changes
Um,
all the time. So you have
and
to
then
stay
yeah,
agile.
and then another person that I use a lot is actually Jesse. So I send in a lot of requests, especially when we're doing outreach events,
Mhm.
because we try to structure things so that we can still get the information out that was shared post event, and document some of the things that we're doing to help build our presence. So his team, him and his colleagues, they will even convert this show to YouTube. So
Ooh.
that they've got an intro for us, and they add that on, and then they put that in onto the YouTube extension channel, and our team uses that a lot. We drive people to that channel. A lot of topics that we may spend on, we might not get in a training, but we like, hey, more information or more detail. Here is a YouTube link, and drive it to that social media platform. And I would say we
So,
probably use that
so
more than we.
somebody's got to drop the YouTube link in the chat,
Oh, I will. I will.
and let us know how we can become followers and subscribe
Oh,
and get all of this great
yeah.
information.
Just go there. It's the Central State University Extension. Make sure you put extension on there because the university probably has about 10 or 15 different channels. But for our extension work on not just our team but the other teams, um, all have content on there, educational content ranging from family empowerment, that whole CED spectrum, but 4-H, how to grow stuff, agriculture, a little bit of everything. So
Okay.
um, it's a lot of content on there.
Well,
So,
I will
and
definitely be checking it out and consuming some of that content.
yeah,
Um, I like to wind down with YouTube. So before I go to sleep at night, I kind of turn off network television and I go into YouTube and I'll watch videos and learn things um, and it's a good way for my brain to transition from you know getting information that's given to me without my permission or without my input to being able to navigate and hear and learn about things that I'm interested in. Well, that's great. So tell me about your stakeholders. So who are some of the external stakeholders that we hadn't talked about yet?
external, because
Hmm.
we have both. We have internal and external.
Hmm.
Um, so external is the whole state of Ohio,
Okay.
whether it's businesses, whether it's individuals, organizations, local government, state offices, as well as federal government offices that are, operating to
That
serve
are
the state
housed
of
in Ohio.
Ohio.
Hmm.
Um, and then other extension universities, we work with them to do joint programming. So pretty much everybody, because we touch that whole CED spectrum, right? So
Excellent.
um, we just do it in a managed way, and we our team particularly have a lot of internal planning, and we manage how we launch stuff.
Hmm.
So we determine based on what the needs are or who throughout the state wants that program at that time, if it needs to be virtual or in person. Um, so some things are more efficient to do virtually, and we do that. And then, but we do our follow up is the one-on-one time, that in-person time, where that person can take a deeper dive in their specific issue. But that groundwork, the foundation was through the training. So that's how we have a long-term impact, not just a immediate impact.
I love that because it is important that our impact be sustainable,
Yes.
and as we're serving in these roles, that we're leaving a legacy and we're leaving something of substance to those that come behind us and will have to pick up the torch and carry it forward. So it is very important. I love that. One of the tools that I use when I'm trying to navigate or trying to figure out whom I need to be communicating with and how I need to communicate with them, I use a tool called stakeholder mapping. And what I do is I take a grid, a 2 by 2 grid, and I map out who is concerned about the issue, who is this issue impacting, and who has some influence or the ability to change or transform things in this space. So, when I do that, I'll come, of course, I'm going to have stakeholders that are internal and in my team, but then I have to think about who's not present in these spaces and how can we make sure that their voice or their opinions are included in the decision making process. So I'm always looking at mapping it out, and we'll have people that are of high influence and of high concern, and those are the people that I need in the rooms with me. I need to help champion this cause with me, and I'm reaching out and I'm trying to collaborate with them. One of the social media tools I use for collaboration 364 days out the year, it's probably one day out the year that I'm not on LinkedIn, is LinkedIn. And I use the private messenger to communicate with people. And I am not afraid to jump in someone's DM that I've never met before in person and start a conversation with them. And some of those conversations have really grown into, meaningful relationships. I had an opportunity back in 2019, so it was before the pandemic, and Bethany House was doing a capital campaign. We were trying to raise $20 million to build a new shelter. And the state capital finance committee was meeting here in Cincinnati. And I was able to navigate my way into that room and have conversations. And it was so amazing to me to look around the room and see community leaders. The president of the African American Chamber was a decision maker. There was presidents of private organizations that were there. There were, of course, Hamilton County commissioners were in the place. So there was about 25 people that I had to share my story in front of and tell them why they should support us. And when we walked away, they had pledged almost $1 million of the state budget to that particular cause. And it's sometimes scary. I call myself an ambivert. So I'm introverted at my core, but when I'm out, I can do extroverted things, but I have to always go back into my little bubble and recharge. So, to get in front of a room full of powerful movers and shakers like that, my knees were knocking. Um, but I had to do it because that cause was just so important to me. And I knew that there were people, that were in shelter or that were housing insecure that didn't have the opportunity um, to be in those spaces. So, sometimes, we say we got to take one for the team. Well, sometimes I have to take one for somebody that doesn't even know I exist. And I may never meet that person, but I have to, be their voice and be their advocate. Um, and, it was great that we had a successful outcome. And sometimes that happens, but sometimes we don't have the successful outcome. And when we're in those spaces and trying to advocate for someone else that doesn't have a voice for themselves, sometimes the best we can do is to make sure that the decisions that are being made don't harm that individual. So, we really have to walk that tightrope and say, okay, if we can't, this is the world that I want to live in, and this is the world that I want to design. But if we can't get that, these are my absolute non negotiables. These are the things we have to do. There's no, getting around it. And, you have to sometimes have those uncomfortable conversations with people that are way more influential or way more powerful than you. And, I always tell people there's a TikTok video of Will Smith, and he says, if you can't get over the fear, then just do it scared. And, fear, I always tell people that everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of that fear. So when you walk through that fear, you are going to, all the things you want, the world that you want to see. One of my students used an acronym that fear is false evidence appearing real. Because most of the things that we fear and that we're terrified of, they aren't real. They're just in our heads. They're just occupying space. And I love that acronym because then it makes it a little bit more tangible, a little bit smaller, and I can
Mhm.
breathe and I can go forward. And then, like I said, at the end of the day, though, I have to go recharge.
Yes.
Everything has to go off. It's me and my puppy, and we spend quality time, and that's my recharging of my batteries. So then that next day I can get up and do it all over again. Um, so that's been very influential. There are some great tools that you can use to help you with stakeholder mapping. Sometimes I get to teach the marketing module for the Association for Fundraising Professionals, and we use
Mhm.
Rosso's concentric circle. And it reminds you of the target circle, and it tells you at each level who you should be getting information for. So in that space, we're talking about nonprofit organizations. So, we want to communicate to our board of directors immediately. Anything that's going on in the organization, the board needs to know day one. Then we want to make sure that we are including our employees, our volunteers, um, our donors, people that are county commissioners and elected officials. And then as we get to the outer part of the sphere, we want to make sure that the community at large is included. And when we're thinking about how we communicate with each of those, we've got to use different techniques. And I always tell leaders like yourself that our job isn't done until we have confirmation that our message has hit every circle of that sphere and they understand what action they need to take next. So it's not just that they hear you, but they understand what the call to action is from our message. So if you're sending out information through the media, it's a little harder because, you know, one, you don't have control over what gets edited out. And, two, it's being delivered when you're further removed. So that's why it's always good to make sure that you're sending people to a website or a landing page or somewhere that they can gather the information. A lot of times things will be on the news for a minute, 2 minutes, and someone might walk into the room, and they might miss the beginning part of your conversation. So if you always give them that call to action, well, if you want more information, make sure you go and visit my website and then give them the exact address. Don't make them hunt around and try and find it and try and figure it out, because when you're in an organization the size of Central State, that website is massive. So you have to give them the exact way to get to your information, just like you did with the YouTube channel. Um, and if things are being published, I love the fact that a lot of the news cycle is now electronic. So a lot of times, people used to, in earlier days, they would want to be on the news, they want to be on the television screen so their grandma could see them, or so, you know what I mean? They thought that that was the best. But I've actually come to find that being on digital platforms is so much longer living. And I can then, like, if I'm featured on a digital platform, I can then share that information for people that weren't sitting in front of their TV at 5, 6, 7, or whatever time
Mhm.
their news broadcast comes on. I have a whole section of my website dedicated to news and media. And every time I've been interviewed, been on a podcast, this is going on there. My team asked me, like, "Are you going to get
Yep.
a recording?" I said, "Yes, this will
Yes.
go on our website." Um, but every time I've been interviewed, been published in any magazine, I make sure that it goes on there so that that lives longer and people can always come back and refer to that information. Because the information is so important, and it's important that we're getting the information to as many people as possible and giving them actionable steps that they can take, because we don't want anybody walking away just smarter. We want them empowered, we want them to feel activated, and we want them to know that there is support for their activism and the work that they're doing.
And the activation is a key part. So it's not only the engagement on our end, but like I said, we want our audience to come away with actionable steps,
Mhm.
practical steps, not, oh, I felt good, it was awesome, but then they go back to business as usual before they had the training. That's not impact to us, right? That first part is the awareness, but we want you to incorporate it now into your rhythm, right?
Mhm.
And I feel you on that, as far as being a hybrid introvert and all that, because my team will probably say I am an extrovert, but they just don't know that after that whole day, I gotta totally unwind, unplug. I turn everything off to rejuvenate. So
Yeah,
I'm good for eight
absolutely.
hours, and then I gotta take a break. Um,
And then
and
we
then
come
it's
back
like,
and do it
whoo,
again with a smile on our face. But
right,
we got to
right.
take that time to take
So,
care of ourselves.
but the important thing about that is that you have to know what your rhythm is, what your balance is, and then incorporate that so that you can stay at the top of your game. Ray
Absolutely.
and Alicia, you all can chime in on comments, questions at any time, so feel free. But uh,
I have a
it,
question, and
uh-huh.
and as we're thinking about different ways of communicating information outwardly, can anybody tell me the last time that they received a handwritten note?
I just received one this actually yesterday, and I had my middle daughter is about to have a baby. We had her baby shower on Sunday, and
Oh,
um
congratulations. That is
and I got
exciting.
my handwritten note, and it made me so happy because you don't see those. At first, it was like do a handwritten note. Then email came out, right? Where
Hmm.
everybody had access, and then it was, well, not everybody had access, so it was new, trendy to have this email. But now we're so email saturated. I've actually gone back to doing handwritten thank yous when I meet new people or someone I'm trying to build a relationship with, and I just give them a short note, my business card. I stick that in there, reference something funny or that that they would remember me by, something that I can put in there quickly if we had something interesting in a conversation. And yeah, and I
It
use
doesn't
the
it just
emails
make you
follow up.
feel special that someone
Yes,
took the time to put pen to paper and
yes,
acknowledge the time that you spent together, and an
yes.
accolade. It is
Even the
not just
envelope was
popular.
handwritten. I was like,
Ooh, okay.
I was like, oh, it wasn't a label. They took the time. I was like, oh. But kids, younger generations, they don't even practice even how to fill out an envelope anymore.
or how
In
to fill out a
schools.
paper check or all of
Yeah,
those
or
things.
yeah,
Well, that just means that we, as the older generation, we have to spend time and give them
yep,
opportunities to do that. You know, it
yes,
really does make someone's day when they open up the mail and there's a letter in there that someone took time to write and to think about the words or think about the interaction. Put a stamp on it. Then you got to go to the post office.
right.
That is a whole process. Now, I
Yes.
will say I'm a little bit guilty that, that I don't always get to the post office the day that I anticipated. So sometimes it's a couple of days delayed, but I do like to make sure to send handwritten notes for very special, special thank yous, special opportunities. And email is nice. I mean, I'm not at all, email has kept us alive, so I'm not at all knocking it. But just when we think about those last times we received a handwritten note, it's always such a nice feeling
Yes.
to feel the ink on the paper and just to
Yes.
have that connection with another human being. So, and I think that's important. We have to make sure that we're passing that forward to the future generations.
I totally
So I
agree.
encourage everyone that's here with us and everyone that's watching to send a young person a letter. We might have to print because I don't think all the schools aren't teaching cursive writing either. So you might have to
Mhm.
write in print, but send a young person a handwritten letter through the mail and encourage them to send you one back and see what you get. I did that to my daughter. She lives in Houston now, and I wrote her a handwritten note and I told her to write me back. And she wrote me a postcard. She hand wrote it, but she did not mail it. So the next time she was in town, she gave it to me. I said, "That's not what you were supposed to do," but I appreciate it, and it's right by my bedside. But it's very personal. If you're trying to communicate critically important information, because it's so important that you as the distributor get confirmation that the person received it, that's always a time that I think that you need to pick up the telephone or have a face-to-face meeting,
Mhm.
because you can't certain messages you cannot leave to chance. um, and sometimes it's even, very sometimes when you call somebody they don't answer the phone because they're so used to texting. um, and you have to then be intentional to call them back or leave them a message to call you back. But you really want to make sure that that communication loop is closed, and that's especially true for critical information, because you're right, we get so many emails, we get promotional emails, we get, we're overloaded with information coming at us all the time, that we just those critical messages, we just have to make sure that those are getting to the receiver, and they're, giving us verbal communication. Yes, I hear you, and this is our next steps together. um, so I want to talk a little bit about building your community. In social media world, we talk about building your tribe, and finding people that are like-minded, are mission driven, or want to help you move your cause forward, want to help you move your business forward. I always tell people that are in business, that are a little nervous about posting on social media or asking someone to support their business. People want to help you, but you have to help them help you. You
Right.
have to tell them how they can communicate with you, how they can support your business. And for me, supporting my business isn't always buying a product or service. Sometimes it's advocating or introducing me to someone in their sphere of influence, or it's sharing a post. Sometimes it's just liking a post, because we all work real hard on those posts and they go out there and you get like one or two persons like them. You're like, but I work so hard. So sometimes it's just a matter of them showing that they
Yes. Now Monty has just frozen. She
Just
looks like
frozen.
she's in deep song, right?
Right.
Okay, you're back. You're
You're
back.
back.
I'm back.
And
It flickered
And
for a
Eric
second.
has a question too. He wanted to ask you before you get into that segment.
Okay, go right ahead. It's a
Oh,
perfect segue.
well, I was just curious what I just looked at your website. Yeah, you got things laid out, the different blogs or interviews that you've been on and that sort of thing. I assume those things had there was some intentionality around how you get yourself invited into these spaces, and I wonder if you could share a little bit about that. What's your strategy there to
She's the mastermind at that.
So is some intentionality, because you want to have visibility where your target audience is. Um, am I breaking, or we have a guest? Okay.
Okay.
So you want to have visibility in those spaces. So you need to understand where your stakeholders get their information. And it's an actual specific question that I ask people during the onboarding process, sometimes just over coffee, and I'll ask them in a very neutral way. So, have you heard the latest news? Well, have you heard about, the area code change in Cincinnati? And then they'll tell me they heard it in their opinion. Well, where did you hear it? Who was the person that brought that information to you? And once I understand where these people are getting their information, then that's where I'm going to be strategic in pitching my business and making sure that I have a presence in those spaces. And that's one of the great benefits of being visible on social media, and across all the various social medias, because I find that a lot of journalists are spending more time on Twitter, um, than they are on your Facebook or your Instagram. So having a presence on Twitter, has definitely helped me build relationships with journalists, and they know that either I have a stance on a particular subject or I have some information to add to the conversation that's of value. And they'll reach out to me, they'll DM me. I have one lady, she'll call me. So if I see the phone ring, I know that she's looking for a story. And sometimes I'm not the story. Sometimes it's somebody else I know or someone else in a different space. So really, those relationships are valuable as well. And it's a symbiotic relationship. So they need stories, they need information to make their job go more smoothly. So if you can brand yourself as a resource and a subject matter expert, um, then they're going to reach out to you to include you in their stories. So that is one of the reasons why I always tell, even if a person doesn't have a business and they're a working professional, they should still be having some type of presence so that they can be, a resource for those journalists that need to tell that story. So yeah, a lot of it was very intentional. Sometimes it happens accidentally. So a journalist reached out to me, for a Women's History Month event or Women's History Month story, and I gave him two powerhouses. But, oh, I have the perfect people for you. And one of them did the interview. She was wonderful. The other one delegated it back to me. So now I have to do the interview in her space. I mean, and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy just to serve in that capacity, but that was not at all my intention. My introverted self wanted to go hide under the covers, but the message needs to get out there. So I'm going to sit with her and get her talking points and then do my best to deliver that message to the community. That's a great question.
But that means that that stakeholder has a lot of trust in you, right? And sees you as very capable, and professional for her not to just refer back to you to say somebody else. No, I want you to represent me, and you're not even part of her organization. So that
Right.
speaks to that relationship management, right? And the key to always being having a high level of integrity, and ethics, with the people, being authentic, and whatever you say you're gonna do, you do. And if you
Yes.
can't do it, say I can't do it, but here's a resource, right? Not just leaving them hanging, but you're keeping it and staying in your lane,
Right.
right? Right. And I was like, because sometimes I get people asking me stuff, and I'm like, I've never even worked in that space at all. How did you get my name, right? Well, so and so gave me. I said, oh, okay. Well, this is where you need to go. I got a call a couple days ago about a summer youth employment program. I haven't run up that program on my own since 2013, and she called on my direct sale. Right. I'm like, she was talking up, but I told her how the process works, what she needs to do, and made myself, if you have any more questions, call back. Right. So it's all about
Right.
that relationship. And it's all
And
about
keeping
the
the
kids at the end of the day anyway. We want them working and doing positive things. So, but
Yeah,
it
so
was just like,
if they were interning in 2013, I'm curious to know, where are they now? They are probably grown
oh, well,
with their
some
own
of them
family.
have are yes, and they have some of them being entrepreneurs. I've supported their businesses and gave them advice on how to grow. So that's the beauty of CED work when you're pouring in and planting those seeds. Um, that impact is not just that training. It's not necessarily even in that same year. It could be 4,
Right.
5, 6 years from now, right? So that's the beauty of our
Absolutely.
work.
That is. A couple of points I wanted to get across as we're
Okay.
trying to build our tribe and our community. If you're trying to get someone to come to the table and help you champion a cause, you really want to make sure that you are selling it to them. And, we use the WITHM acronym. So when you said something about acronyms in the beginning, I'm like, yep, there's an acronym for everything.
Yeah.
But it stands for what's in it for me. So when you're trying to get someone to do some work, especially volunteerism, activism, those types of things, you want to definitely sell it to them in a way that you're letting them know why they should be a part of that initiative. And people are more likely to champion that cause if there's a benefit to them or people in their sphere. So sometimes, like I mentioned about families experiencing homelessness, um, it might not be a direct benefit to me, but it's benefiting people in my sphere or my peers. Through this pandemic, I've had very close friends and family members experience housing insecurity. And so knowing that, I'm doing this work, I know that it's having an impact on them, even if not directly, but indirectly. And then always, when you're putting those groups together, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that brings people from different experiences, different schools of thought, different backgrounds. I know diversity and DEI has become a very common acronym, but we don't just want to be diverse in color, age, sexuality, those things. Those are in some ways surface level. We want to
Mhm.
make sure that we are looking deeper and making sure that we are diverse in thought, in how people process information. You don't want to put 4 or 5 introverts in a room together and expect them to solve a big problem. They probably ain't gonna talk to each other.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're mixing it up and that you're bringing in people that think differently than you, that have a different experience than you, and that are going to challenge your assumptions. If a person feels comfortable enough with me to challenge what I say or what I'm thinking um, in a respectful way, then one, I know that they're listening, I know that they're thinking about it, and I know that they are bringing in their perspective, and I want to take that time to incorporate their perspective and pause, because their life experience may have been very different than mine. And
You just
that's, I
described our
value.
team. You just described our team.
That is awesome. That's awesome. See, I know I'm in the right place. And in social media, we talk a lot, and you'll hear the term influencer and influencer marketing and all of these, buzzwords. And, if you're not careful, you think that these are new phenomenons. And, this is something that just started with Instagram. And people can be influential in so many different ways. You can be influential in your religious organization and how you're connecting people to resources. You can be influential in the educational space. If you're in a classroom setting and you understand the assignment or you understand what the educator is trying to convey and your peers don't, you can be that liaison in that space and help your peers understand and communicate, be that bridge. So we really want to, what I mean, like we want to build the infrastructure. We want to be the infrastructure. I want to be the conduit to helping someone else, their life be a little bit better, the world be just a little bit better than it was when I got here. That is something that I'm always trying to do. And that's why I always want to find out where people are getting their information from and how they can be persuaded. So what are their motivational factors? What's important to them? You're going to have some people that are extrinsically motivated. And in some spaces, all of us are extrinsically motivated in some ways, shape, or another. And that means that you're motivated by external things. So it could be you're motivated by profitability. You could be motivated by, accolades, titles, things of that nature, awards. And people will do certain things for those external motivations. But then you also have people that are intrinsically motivated. And I don't think any of us are any 100% either or. Um, But understanding in that space that you're working in or you're advocating in, how are those people going to be motivated? And what is it going to take for them to show up and do their best work and put their best effort forward? So really, learning people, listening to people, and getting to know um, where they're getting their information from, where their knowledge came from. We ask here in Cincinnati, everybody in Cincinnati asks, where did you go to high school?
Yes. And
And
did
I
you grow
thought
up
that
on
was
the east side or the west side?
I thought that was normal until I got to travel outside of Cincinnati,
Right.
and they're like, "Why does that matter?" I'm like, "Oh, y'all don't do that?" Because then once we find out where you went to high school, then we know at least two or three people that went to your high school. So we want to know if you know that person. And really, that's our sphere of influence. Those are people maybe we grew up with them, or we went to college
Mm-hmm.
with them, and they might have gone to your high school, or maybe they live next door to us now. So we're just really trying to build those connectors.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny when you if are any of you guys not from Cincinnati? Do we have
Only
any?
Jesse, I, and yourself are from Cincinnati. Everybody else is
Okay.
from everywhere else.
So you
Yep.
guys have to bear with us when we get into those conversations because we are so serious. We need to know. It is important because we are cataloging this in our brain. I always tell my kids, I'm putting it in my Rolodex. So my kids are 21 and 25, so they have no idea what a Rolodex is.
Right.
And then they have to ask me. Um, and I do think that, a lot of people, especially, you want to make sure that you have that diverse. Oh, you guys changed seats on my
Yep.
screen at least. Eric and Ambrose, your
It
screen
changed on me
switched.
too.
Okay. But you want to get people that look like the people that you're trying to influence, that talk like the people that you're trying to influence, that have been where those people have been, because that peer to peer exchange is so valuable. So when you're able to create this unique, diverse pool of influencers, you're able to reach people at so many different levels and getting information in an organic way. I saw the
Right.
timer say that we're getting close to
Oh, we're fine.
um,
You're fine. Keep
okay.
going. You're fine.
So, when we're one of the things I want to get across is some of the steps that I take in our problem solving process. So if
Okay.
and that it can be if you're trying to solve a big community problem, you can use this if you're trying to solve a small personal problem. But I think the first step is really understanding the root cause of the problem. So I get to the answer or understanding the root cause of the problem by using the 5 W's and the H. Now, a lot of people will think that the 5 W's and the H are who, what, when, where, and why. And that is not my philosophy. My philosophy is that it is why, why, why is that? Well, why not? Well, why are we doing it this way? So if you can find 5 ways to ask the question why, the first answer you're going to get is probably going to be very politically correct, very surface level. The second answer you're going to get is going to start to talk about that person and their experiences. When you get down to that third, fourth, and fifth level, that's when you're going to really understand that person and their motivation, and you'll start to get answers that are truly personal, and they're tell you how that person processes thought. And so learning to ask people, and some people after that third why, they get a little perturbed. So that's why I like to switch it up and not just say the same why. Well, why is that? Well, why not? Turning around, well, why not? Well, why not this? So that way they don't get upset with me and get frustrated. But sometimes we had an opportunity not too long ago to speak at North College Hill, and we did that with some students, some 11th and 12th graders, and it was hilarious that by the third why, the young man was like, I don't know why I buy the gym shoes I buy, I just buy them. But his classmates picked up on the fact of what we were doing, so then the young man reiterated it back to us. Once you've gotten to what we call the root cause of the problem, then it's a great time for the collective group to brainstorm different alternatives. So if there's a problem, most problems, if they have a name to it, then it's happened before. You're not the first person to experience this. So start thinking about what other people are doing about this problem. How are they solving the problem? How are they navigating in this space? And just brain dump all of the possible solutions. And then you can start to eliminate solutions that they don't work because of this, or they don't work in this space because of this element. And what you'll end up with are probably 3 or 4 things that might work, and then you can start to mold a solution that works for everybody involved. Again, you want to make sure that you're thinking about all the people that are involved. Um, and it's so important that you come back to understanding why people are choosing to support your initiative. So when you're communicating that, once you've come up with a solution and you got to communicate it outwardly, whether you're marketing a product, whether you're marketing a service, when you have those answers to those whys, you can market to the whys. So in marketing, we tell people, don't sell the steak, sell the sizzle. People are hungry. Why are they hungry? Well, they haven't had a good, nourishing steak or the meal that really satisfied them in a long time. Maybe they ate a granola bar, maybe they had a banana, maybe they had a cup of coffee. But when was the last time they sat down and they had a good, satisfying steak? So then you want to know what satisfies that person. And that's what you want to sell. So the same thing when we're solving these big community problems is, what does success look like, and how can we measure it? And I know you guys are probably using SMART goals every single day, but you want to make sure that your success is measurable. And so the most important letters to me on that are the measurable and the timely, because you need to have checkpoints. We need to come back together on this date and talk about it. We need to have a solution by this date. Everybody give me your ideas by this date. So then that way you can tell if you're on track to solving the problem. And if you're not on track, then you might need to change what you're doing. So if if you have these big goals and they're not specific and they're not realistic, and you're just, throwing out these big, beautiful goals, and you don't have any way to check in to see how you're doing, then chances are you're never going to be successful in that space. So before we leave each other, and Amber, you said this very well, I want everyone to know that in this arena, it is so important that you are impeccable with your word. And to me, that is the true representation of any brand, is doing what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, and when you make a mistake, because we're all human and we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to fall short, that you own up to it, and that you always work on improving and getting better than you were yesterday. The only real competition we have is the person that we were yesterday. So I will meet with my competitors. I will have coffee with them. We can collaborate on projects. The only one I'm really concerned about being better than is the Nahamani that I was yesterday. So I would love to see if anybody has any last minute
I think Miss Longmire was typing something,
questions that
but
I
she
can.
can.
Okay.
Then she stuck.
Oh no, I enjoyed
Alyssa,
this.
do
I
you want
just
to
was
take
gonna,
Go
yes,
ahead.
hi Imani. I know you can't see me,
it?
but I thank you for sending out your email, and the newsletter was great. So I just learned about this not just the other day and jumped on. And thank you, Central State and Amber and Eric and everybody that had something to do with putting this together. But I just learned a lot about what stakeholders what to
Hmm.
do when you're trying to attract them. And I'm just looking at my own work, my nonprofit that I work for, as well as helping other nonprofits figure out uh, who to invest in. And I like what you said, Imani, your own people, and I really think that's a big piece that I've taken away from this, to make sure I build into my own staff. And as I'm also looking to see, make sure that they are able to sustain the work,
Absolutely. Yes.
eventually, because you do need more than yourself to keep me going. So thank you for that. I do have to jump off, but thank you for a great opportunity to learn
Thank you.
more.
And
You're welcome. Thank
before
you.
you log off, what's the
Uh,
name of your organization?
well, I work for a local nonprofit here in Cincinnati, Ohio, called Prevention First, and that is
Okay.
located in Norwood, Ohio.
Hmm.
And I work with several organizations. The Amani is familiar with Longmire Safe Havens Homes, and another one called Winter Mindset. So
Okay.
two small nonprofits up and coming, and she's always there to help us. So I just want to say thank you.
Okay, I'm
I'm
gonna
so
send you.
glad that you're
I know you
here.
have registered. I'm gonna send you a link because
Okay.
there's the Human Services Fund with the City
Mm,
of Cincinnati. And
Okay.
if you're serving more than just the Norwood residents, because Norwood is its own city, but if you
Yeah.
took serving any Cincinnati residents, you're eligible for that fund, and it's
Okay.
due at the end of this month. I serve as
Oh,
chair on that committee, and what we do is we basically review or grade those proposals and make recommendations for funding. And it's a two
oh,
years worth of funding. So the
wow.
smallest fund is 40,000 a year. So I
Mhm.
will send you the link to that, so that
Okay.
that can perhaps help you, and you can do a different application for each of the each organization. That's why I was asking what you
Oh,
were
well,
doing.
thank you. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, yes. Oh
Yes.
yes,
Yes,
Leah.
I love
And
that.
it's
I was
not and it's
looking for
not
that,
an
Miss Amber.
extensive, like it's not a big long application. It's pretty simple. You can start and save it as you go along, all of that kind of stuff. But that
Oh,
is active right now.
oh my goodness. Thank you, Miss Amber. I'll be looking for
Okay.
that. Thank
Okay.
you. You
Yes,
all have a
ma'am.
great day, you all.
Okay.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. Bye
Joining me. Thanks.
bye.
Thanks for reading my
Oh yes. I always do. They're great. Thank you, Nehemiah. Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
y'all.
So Jesse or Ray, do either of you have any questions or comments that you would like to make?
No, ma'am. No.
Okay.
Thank you, Ray, for joining us.
Yes.
Hey, you're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ambrose and Eric.
Oh,
No,
I
no
didn't
question.
really have it's a lot uh to take in. This has been very deep, to take in and to think about in the context of what we work with and who we work with. Um, I think that there is a need for some sort of follow up kind of conversations. The one area that I would want to sort of delve deeper into would be when you talk about those circles of influence. When you get to the larger group, which is where we're looking to deliver the education, because extension delivers education. And it's not about just delivering the education. We're actually trying to create change. So to actually have the individuals that we're educating to act upon that. Um, and you, I don't think that we can just call them. So calling to get that message across might not be as feasible. So what are some strategies or methods to actually make sure that that message gets to that large group and that they actually understand it and act? But I know that that would be a bigger and more in-depth conversation, but that's what comes to mind. But
Okay, I
thank you
would
very
love
much for
to continue that
sharing
conversation
with us.
because I do think that there are definitely some communication tools that are at our disposal that we can use to make sure that they're getting and receiving the app information and that they're hearing it in a way that means something to them. Because we don't ever want to be in a position where we're talking at somebody.
Hmm.
Um, and you don't want to put a lot of effort into marketing materials and the person that on the receiving side, it doesn't even resonate to them. So making sure that it is meaningful to the recipient is something that we can definitely chat about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
I love that. Well, thank you guys so much. This was wonderful. This was a great experience. I feel like I've hung out with some new friends and we just had a good conversation. So I'm so thankful for the opportunity to spend time with you guys and just to share what I'm passionate about.
Well,
As you can
thank
see,
you for joining
I'm
us
very
and take
passionate about it.
yes. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and educate us and help us give even more tools to the people that we serve. In general, we do CED Office Hour Live every Thursday at 2 p.m. We talk about all subjects CED. So next week we will be having Kristen Smitherman Voltaire from Turner Construction, and we'll be focusing our conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion, also economic inclusion in the contracting space. The week after that, we will have Steve Washington, who is the Central State University's director of, he has a new title, director of community engagement, business partnerships and outreach, right? Academia gives you these long titles. And he will be focusing on, right. So he'll be focusing on supplier diversity, contracting opportunities, as well as continuing the conversation from last week on ways to collaborate with Central State University and Extension as a whole. Um, and then the week after that, I will have Lauren Merton. She is from Social Venture Partners, and this is another major resource for nonprofit sector. And she will be talking about some of the ways that nonprofits can help leverage what they're doing. And they have some very neat programs, but they also, on the technical assistance side, but they also have some funding opportunities, right, throughout the year. So we'll be talking, I'll be bringing Lauren on at the end of the month. And I tried to focus on getting a lot of women because this is Women's History Month. So thank you for being part of the Women's Coalition. And we're strong in different places, whether it's within an organization, our own businesses. And we're all in different decision-making positions and influencing, right? So just wanted, thank you for joining us once again. And like I said, I will be following up so we can have some continual conversations even with our CED team. So without further ado, if we don't have, do we have any more comments? Going once, going twice? Well, today we will close out this week's of Sell the Sizzle and Not the Steak. And thank you all for joining us, and see you next Thursday live and in living color at 2 p.m. I will forward you the edited when Jesse's team finish editing. I'll send you that YouTube link, and so you can continue to share the information and use it as you like. And till next week, enjoy.
All righty.
Thank
You guys have a
you.
good rest